When will you realise that you've been tolerating too much? There often comes a moment in life that is both quiet and very powerful. A moment when you suddenly see something clearly that you've been explaining away for far too long. Not because you didn't notice it before, but because you kept giving it the benefit of the doubt, making excuses, hoping things would change. And then one day something shifts and you realise you've been tolerating far more than you should have. Most people don't reach that moment suddenly, it usually builds slowly. A comment that didn't sit right, a behaviour that keeps repeating, and a feeling that something's off. But you push it aside because you don't want conflict. But eventually the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. And when that realization arrives, it can feel both very uncomfortable and strangely freeing. So, hi, I'm Julie, also known as Great Granny Julie from TikTok, and I'm here to share my thoughts on boundaries, self respect, and emotional strength, all things that are deeply connected to our mental health. Over the past 70 or so years, I've gathered valuable insights into life, and sharing these, I hope, will make your journey a bit easier. So, if you're interested in learning what I have to say, my random thoughts, then please feel free to subscribe. Um, I'd very much appreciate it. Now, today I'm going to look at 5 moments when you might start realizing that you've tolerated too much. Number 1, when the excuses stop making sense. For a long time, you might have explained someone's behaviour. Oh, they're under a lot of stress. Or they didn't mean it. Oh, they're just having a difficult time. And compassion is a good thing. But there comes a point when the same behaviour happens again and again and again, and the explanations start to feel thinner each time. Eventually, you realise that you're no longer explaining their behaviour, you're protecting it. And that's often the first sign that things need to change. So, number 2, when you notice that pattern, everyone has difficult days, everyone makes mistakes, but patterns are different, patterns repeat. When you start recognizing the same behavior over and over and over again, the same dismissive comments, the same broken promises, the same sort of lack of respect, it becomes harder to ignore what's really happening. That awareness can be very uncomfortable, but it's also the beginning of clarity. Number 3, when you feel drained instead of supported. So, one of the clearest signs is how you feel after spending time with someone. Do you feel lighter and happier, or heavy and worn out? Do you feel encouraged or diminished? Healthy relationships may not always be perfect. No relationship is perfect, but they should not leave you feeling consistently exhausted or unsure of yourself. Your emotional response is often telling you something important. Number 4, when you start losing parts of yourself. Now, sometimes tolerating too much doesn't just affect how you feel about the relationship. It begins affecting how you feel about yourself. You might sort of notice that you hold back your opinions, you avoid certain topics, or you walk on eggshells to keep the peace. Little by little, you begin shrinking parts of yourself to make the situation easier. And that quiet self suppression, That often becomes a turning point once you realise it. Number 5, when peace finally becomes more important than pleasing. For many people, the real shift happens when something inside them changes. Instead of constantly trying to maintain harmony, they begin valuing something else more. And that's peace, your peace. Real peace doesn't come from constantly accommodating behaviour that hurts you. It comes from recognising your limits, your boundaries, and respecting them. So, realising you've been tolerating too much can bring mixed emotions. There may be disappointment, frustration, even regret that you didn't recognise it sooner. That was one of my big things. I should have seen it. But there's also something that comes with that moment, and that's this clarity, this clear vision. Because once you truly see a pattern, it becomes much harder to pretend it isn't there. And that clarity, that vision gives you something powerful. It's the ability to decide what you will and what you will not accept moving forward. So here's a closing thought. Learning to recognise when you've been tolerating too much isn't about becoming harsh or unforgiving. It's about understanding your own value and recognising that respect, consideration, and kindness should not be optional in any relationship. They should be the foundation. So, was there a moment in your life when you realised you'd been tolerating too much? Have a think and let me know in the comments. Take care of yourself. Thank you for being here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.